Hamish and Ben are here to tell me about Just Cause 4. I think we should just call it Just Chaos. Do you guys ever think of that as a potential rebrand or anything?
I mean, I think it's a good idea. Maybe we should just go back and do it all again. No, it's definitely Chaos is obviously a kind of key feature of the game, but Just Cause, it's a game which we've kind of worked on for the last 3 years since JC3.
Yeah.
And we're always looking to inject a little bit more chaos into the game.
It is insane how many things you can do in the game. When I'm playing the game, Ben, is it kind of like you guys had 3 going and everything was working, and then you just wanted to sort of fiddle with it and juice all of the mechanics and see how far you could take it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of about finding what we can add to the formula. There's no shortage of ideas of cool new stuff we can do in this game, right? It's just madness. The trick to it is finding the good stuff, the really, really good stuff. So we had the wingsuit in Just Cause 3, which was a really fun new addition to kind of the dynamics of how you control Rico and move through the world. And then we thought, how can we make this even better? So there's some groundwork, small improvements that you might not even notice the first time you play, but if you go back and look at Just Cause 3, you'll definitely feel the difference. But in Just Cause 4, we also add in this new component of wind, which really adds a lot of new dynamics to how the wingsuit is played with. It's a similar thing with the grappling hook. In Just Cause 3, we added a much finer control over what you can do with it, and more tethers than you ever had before. We went up to 8 or something like that. And now we're giving you 10 tethers, and we add airlifting balloons into the mix and booster rockets into the mix and all sorts of customization options. And all of that is just kind of taking what was fun about the first thing and then expanding on that and adding more breadth and depth to what you can do.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the philosophy here today with my hands-on, but it really felt like, just go for it, guys. Just jump in, do whatever you want to do, go wherever you want to go. And what I was noticing as I was watching, people around me play, everybody's got a smile on their face and they're laughing. It's a game that never takes itself too seriously, right? Is that a core concept?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a thin line to walk between being a little too goofy and a little too serious for the kind of madness that you're seeing on the screen. But yeah, we tried to really kind of stay out of the player's way and kind of let you go about things your own way. So you're not just being creative when it comes to, lifting a tank into the air and flying it across the world like it's a blimp, but we're also letting you be creative in the way that you unravel the story and discover your path through the world. We take kind of a lighter touch in terms of giving you a narrative, and instead of forcing you to play this mission, then play that mission, then play that mission, we let you play the missions in whatever order you feel like, and each one kind of fills in another blank in the Mad Libs of the Just Cause story world. That allows you to have a much more personal experience with the game and with its story.
Can you describe maybe the craziest thing that you've seen?
Well, yesterday we had a guy who decided to add the airlifters to a mortar, which was like a stationary weapon. And we'd never, it's just, usually we add them to vehicles and other things, and we hadn't kind of considered doing it to that. And he managed to move it, an entire, town across and, place it in the middle of a fight that he wanted to be in. And it was we hadn't even thought of that. So, people will do all sorts of stuff in this game, and it's going to be really fun to see what they do.
Would you say that a big part of the success of this franchise is just it's fun to just get around?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Just Cause is known for its very big worlds. We have 400 square miles of space to play with. Yeah. And so we really want players to get around quickly because, it's a huge play space. And so whether it's vehicles or whether it's just Rico on his own, the kind of traversal part of the game makes the game way more fast-paced than a lot of other games. It's a much bigger space to play in. And we really want players to kind of have that freedom of movement because it falls into that freedom of all the things you can do in the game. So yeah, it's a fundamental part of the kind of concept of how we think about the game world, think about the variety we want to provide, and also think about the enemies. So, if you're in a car driving along, we want it to be the case that if you're going fast enough, maybe we'll bring in a helicopter, right? Because then you begin to have that kind of chase, because rather than, so it's kind of context dependent on what you're doing, you'll get different reactions from the world. That's kind of one of the really fun things about this game is we're trying to get the game to react to you in much more interesting ways and let your experimentation go further.
I'm wondering if there was a moment where you had to an idea that was just one too many, and you said, nope, we can't do that. How do you know when to stop? Because you have a lot that you can do, but how do you know when to stop?
So, I mean, we think very carefully about what the toolkit we want to give the player is. You don't want something that's too similar, right? You want them to have their own unique identity, but you want them to combine in powerful ways. And so it wasn't the case that we threw 50 attachments in and then we picked 3. It was more like we laid out, these are the kinds of things that we want players to be able to do, So, retract can pull, the boosters can push, the airlifters can lift, and so you're kind of thinking about it in those kind of ways rather than necessarily just throwing any old thing in to kind of add to the list of things. We really want the players to be able to build a mental model of what they can do.
Right.
And so it can't be too many things, it has to be the right things. We're also kind of build it out of like who Rico is, both from the traversal point of view, but also from the grapple hook point of view. And that's kind of how the narrative and the mechanics kind of fit together to some extent. We're really kind of thinking about like how do the dynamics of this work, how do it fit in with enemies, what kind of crazy constructions can you make with all this stuff in a way that's very accessible.
Well, how do you stop it from not breaking the game as well? Because like I put boosters on both sides of a motorbike and just went to town, and it just went up into the sky, and I made a helicopter out of a motorcycle, and then I jumped out, and you guys know, how do you not break the game?
Well, I can't say we never break the game, right? But we always want it to be that if something goes inverted commas wrong, it's at least funny. Yeah. So we don't shy away from pushing the boundaries. Like we don't try and cut off every edge case. At the same time, we have very robust systems, and we want the performance to be great. We want the physics to be believable in the sense that we try and get the masses of everything to be right, because when you combine them, you want them to behave in the way you would expect. So a bus is the weight of a bus, right? If it was the weight of a motorbike, and when you try to grapple it to a motorbike, it wouldn't work.
Right.
So we try to kind of put that kind of basic believability in to let us then go kind of crazy with it.
Are there enemies that you're going to face that can kind of really stack up to Rico Rodriguez and his abilities? He's kind of like a superhero, and he can do so many different things, and he seems like an anomaly in a game world like this because of that. But are there other characters that you meet that have, the mobility options and some of the combat options that Rico has?
We like to think that the extreme weather itself is almost like a set of characters that are kind of forces of nature that can go up against Rico's force of nature.
Okay.
Like, it's hard for an individual character to kind of play up to Rico in that sense. At the beginning of the game, like, he encounters some extreme weather and it kicks his ass. And it's like the first time you've actually seen that in a Just Cause game is like he's come across something that he can't just fix with a bigger explosion.
Right.
And so,
equip.
And equip, exactly.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, okay, well now he has to take a different approach, right? He
Yeah.
needs more people than just him. And so the game is about him finding out that whilst the explosive option is definitely like part of this game, it has to be more than that for him to succeed in this particular game.
Totally. This is a character that's now been in 4 iterations of these massive games out there. What's our fascination with Rico? Why is he an enduring part of the video game landscape, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Rico is a lot of fun as a character. He is kind of like a stereotypical action hero in a sense, but he also brings a lot more to the field than that. There's no character quite like Rico out there. Rico is Rico. He can fly, he's an amazing soldier, he's absolutely fearless. You jump off a jet fighter and plunge into the ocean. You can do all that in this game. It's kind of the core vision of Just Cause, is that sort of freedom, and that's kind of what Rico is. He's that chaotic, intuitive force, personified as a human. And I think that makes him a really compelling character.
When you're building Jeopardy for him, though, what kinds of challenges does that present for you? Obviously, you've got the weather and you've got armies that face him, but we also want to have some kind of an emotional connection to him as well, right? And you're working with the narrative team to help put that together?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the classic Superman problem, right? How do you put someone in jeopardy who's got so much power? But in the case of Rico, it's about kind of confronting him with things that are maybe his opposite. So Gabriela Morales, who is an absolute just perfect antagonist for Rico. And the reason is because where Rico is chaotic, Gabriela is very orderly. Where Rico is intuitive, Gabriela is very strategic and thought out. And these things challenge Rico to act in a different way than he has before, to take challenges on in maybe a more thoughtful way. He'll still blow stuff up, but he's got to add a different spin to it now because the battlefield has changed.
I know Just Cause has this phenomenal community, and I think that was a big part of this thing, succeeding and sort of evolving over the time, because you guys were like YouTube videos everywhere, people showing people what they could do with a game like this. Is that kind of what drives you guys to keep making new Just Cause? Is that knowing that their fans are just going to rip this thing apart and do all kinds of fun things?
I mean, our community's been amazing, and when we shipped JC3 and we saw some of the videos of the things that people came up with, like the Jenga tower made by a helicopter, and you're like, wow, like that's someone's put a lot of time and effort into those things, and they produced a great thing. And so, we're always looking for ways to kind of empower the player to kind of bring their creativity to the table. And part of the gig that we have is to kind of get out the player's way, give them the toys to go and play in that sandbox, and then let them go play. And the structure of the game is then designed to kind of help players kind of work out what they can do,
Right.
but at the same time, like, not be so linear as to kind of force players to play in a very linear way. We want players to go and explore, experiment, try out new stuff, and we really try to build this game in a way that lets players just go to the next level.
Is that a big pull for you guys, is to see the YouTube-ness of this game, to see where people take it?
Yeah, I mean, Just Cause has always been about encouraging player creativity, and we really kind of notched that up to 11 this time around. It's going to be really, really exciting for us to kind of see in the first couple of weeks when the game comes out, just like what things did we not even plan for that are just being done out there. And that's kind of the art of building a Just Cause game, is not just being ready for the chaos, but planning for that chaos.
Is there going to be any multiplayer with this game?
Given what we're trying to do with this game,
Yeah.
it would definitely be difficult.
Yeah.
And when you play the game, you'll understand just how much stuff we're throwing around.
Everybody's flying around in
Yeah.
balloon buses and tethering all over the place.
But we do think the game is very social, and it goes back to that some of the streaming stuff you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Like the ability for players to show off to their friends, I think is a really powerful part of the game, and I think that we definitely embrace that part of the social.
So no co-op plans immediately, but maybe down the road if there's a Just Cause 5 or something?
Who knows?